Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The psychic fluctuations transmitted from the space station, which were enough to affect the entire galaxy, swept over Hui Huang and Chen Ming. It put a heavy mental pressure on Chen Ming. He could clearly feel that this psychic fluctuation was not imposed on him, but he felt like a branch in a flood, completely unable to resist this force. There should be only one person in the entire space station who can emit psychic fluctuations of this scale. Chen Ming did not look at the space station behind him. Instead, he turned his head to look at the main battleship that Yu Hui had just jumped to, and the rest of the fleet following it. They had already stopped under the influence of this psychic fluctuation. They had been frozen there since the jump, floating in space, without any movement. What happened to them? The boss's voice came to Chen Ming's ears through the terminal. They are dead. I have destroyed their consciousness, and they are just empty shells now. Okay, come back, time is still quite tight. Hearing the boss's words, Chen Ming swallowed subconsciously. This radiation-class unmanned battleship led the fleet as the flagship, with a total of more than a dozen cruisers, hundreds of destroyers, and hundreds of frigates. In the blink of an eye, they were all destroyed. Or they were all destroyed without any damage. This is the top psychic. However, when he thought that the boss was on his side, Chen Ming relaxed instantly and said, "Boss, I'll find a place to put the ship first." "No, you can just drive into the space station directly." "Okay." Chen Ming responded, and without thinking much, he asked Hui Huang to drive the Hui Huang class into the space station, and his Buffalo class followed next to Hui Huang. Someone will naturally deal with the fleet behind him later. After approaching the pirate space station, Chen Ming found that the number 1 space arm of the pirate space station had been repaired during his absence, and it can be said to be exactly the same as before. When the Hui Huang class drove in, the only 2 cruiser-class ship slots in the entire space station were completely filled. On one berth was the brilliant class that had just arrived. On the other berth was the Supreme Class exploration cruiser that Chen Ming had been looking forward to for a long time. The Buffalo that Chen Ming drove did not take the passage of other small boats, but followed the brilliant class to the cruiser's berth. He found a random position and stuck it to the edge of the berth so that he could get off the ship. At the same time, it was convenient for Chen Ming to observe the appearance of the Supreme when he got off the ship. The overall appearance of the Supreme was somewhat unlike that of a conventional spacecraft. It was wide in the front and wide in the back, and relatively slender in the middle. And the wide part in the front was round and flat in shape. As soon as Chen Ming saw it, he thought of the large galaxy-level scanning core and long-range high-precision sensors that were essential for exploration ships. The back half was more angular. There were many semi-embedded and movable mechanized equipment on it, all of which were physical exploration equipment that could be actually used. In addition, there were many entrances and exits covered by armor plates that could be opened, which Chen Ming could see at a glance. It was convenient for certain things to enter and exit. Since exploration is not just scanning outside the planet, but it is necessary to obtain truly detailed and accurate data of a galaxy or a planet. Therefore, in order to obtain this data, it is essential for the ship to land and conduct an investigation. Therefore, a large number of professional tools and devices that can be carried out or robots that can take the initiative to go out must be prepared near this area on the spacecraft to achieve refined exploration work. Although they all need people to control, Chen Ming almost completely took away the afterglow of the 3 afterglow galaxies, and he is not short of manpower now. As long as he turns back and meets the batch of afterglow sent away by Hui Huang Hui Yao, it is completely sufficient to control the exploration equipment on this highest point. In addition to the most basic exploration function, the exploration ship has another very important thing: armed force. This is the basis for protecting the exploration ship itself. This highest point does have a large number of weapons. There are 2 simple and crude large weapon slots in front of the ship. On the port side of the ship, where the exploration equipment is installed at the rear, there is a large missile slot pointing out obliquely, and on the other side is a whole row of medium-sized missile slots. There is nothing special to say about other smaller weapons on the cruiser. It can be seen that compared with the regular combat-type cruisers, the force of this Supreme Point is slightly weaker. However, looking at the weapons installed on it, Chen Ming feels that the combat power can still compete with ordinary cruisers, especially the two tachyon spears installed in the front of the ship. This thing is currently the most terrifying weapon in the entire human empire among the large weapons of this type. At present, only tachyon technology and Yu Hui have mastered the specific process and manufacturing method of this thing. When facing hostile ships without tachyon technology and afterglow, Chen Ming is confident that he can fight any ship with these two tachyon spears. The large missile slot of the Supreme Point is equipped with a missile called Locust Short-Range Missile Launcher. This is also a relatively famous weapon. It can launch more than 1,000 missiles with micro-tracking and thermal sensing effects at one time. It is specially used to target fighters carried by aircraft carriers or missiles launched by hostile ships. Although it is mainly biased towards protection, the combat capability of weapons is not just about the output of weapons. As long as the effect is good, any weapon can be installed on the ship. What's more, the Supreme Point does not need the kind of missiles that can defeat the enemy with one shot. The simple output is enough with the tachyon spear. There is no problem with other weapons to protect itself. And since such weapons are installed, the armor of the Supreme Point must not be much worse. This top-notch configuration made Chen Ming unable to help but say, "It's really luxurious." The boss, who was still dressed casually as before, just appeared in front of Chen Ming and said, "The spaceship built with the support of the association must be better prepared. Okay, just get on board. You can see everything you want to see on board." He waved his hand, motioning Chen Ming to follow. However, Chen Ming paused for a moment and asked, "Aren't you going to enter the space station?" "No, it's urgent, and I want to be efficient." Chen Ming nodded slightly and said, "Then wait a minute, I have something for you." Chen Ming waved his hand and saw two robots on the Buffalo class behind him dragging a small car down from the spaceship. On the small car was a transparent 2-meter square glass box. In fact, this is a small observation box. It contains Yu Hui's local specialty, the energy crystal crab. This is what Chen Ming specially asked Hui Yao to pick from the ecological cultivation cabin. There are 2 in total, 1 male and 1 female. There were 2 more eggs, 1 male and 1 female. Yu Hui had marked them like this, so Chen Ming asked Hui Yao to put them in. The boss had never seen such a creature before, so he stood next to the observation box and examined it carefully. After looking at it for 2 minutes, he suddenly said, "This thing is good. It looks good. Not only good-looking." Chen Ming added, "The shell of this thing is self-energy storage material." The boss looked a little surprised, and then he was surprised. He gently tapped the glass of the observation box and asked Chen Ming, "You should have more than this, right?" "Yes, I stole an ecological cultivation cabin and got the complete cultivation technology." The boss instantly realized Chen Ming's idea and praised, "It's interesting. It seems that you have thought a lot about the future development of the colony. Keep working hard. It's far from enough to have things. You have to work hard too." "Of course." The boss made a phone call and asked someone to take the observation box away. Then he said to Chen Ming, "Okay, let's go. Get on the boat." "Then my boat?" "It's okay to stop here. Don't you trust me?" "Of course I do." The boss usually hides in the only store in the number 2 space arm to block the pendulum. Sell some cards and make a little money. Although Chen Ming didn't think the boss could make much money, it might be a strange habit, so Chen Ming didn't comment. The boss usually didn't have much presence, but he still had weight. Now he showed this terrifying and powerful psychic power in front of the entire space station and asked for a Yu Hui cruiser to stop here. There was no problem at all. And Chen Ming felt that the boss should have some other reasons for asking him to deliberately leave the ship here. The most obvious one was that the boss wanted to use the arrival of a Yu Hui cruiser that was obviously controlled by humans to announce his return. Many people had heard about his rumors when the 14th Corps took the initiative to launch a surprise attack on Yu Hui some time ago. Although because he was the protagonist of the incident at that time, he said he was dead, causing many people to forget about it. But now that Chen Ming is not dead, the situation is completely different. Everyone will think of him and remember him. This point has been reflected now. There is a special entrance and exit for quick access to the space station here at the cruiser's position. But Chen Ming could still see that the flow of people at the small ship's dock next door had increased. Most of them crowded at the entrance of the space arm, looking at the spacecraft. At the same time, they were sharing their experiences with the people around them who knew nothing, spreading what had happened. And it would also spread to the ears of people in the war zone after a period of time, or even now. This was not to pit Chen Ming, but to protect him. The more people know that Chen Ming has the ability to end the existence of Yuhui, the safer Chen Ming will be. Chen Ming glanced at the crowd in the passage next to him and then looked away. He let the robot follow him, and at the same time he followed the boss. Chen Ming and the boss walked side by side and said casually, "I feel that since I came back, the factory director and Lao Wu will be busy these 2 days." The boss smiled. He also saw the gradually surging crowd at the entrance and exit of the space arm, but this was the effect he wanted. He took Chen Ming around and came to another ship. When the supreme point was within Chen Ming's reach, Chen Ming once again realized how huge the 1,000-meter class ship was. And he alone could control 3 such ships. Under the guidance of the boss, Chen Ming boarded the spacecraft from the head of the supreme point. The internal environment of the supreme point is somewhat similar to the research institute where Chen Ming stayed before. And like the research institute, it is basically pure white. Although it doesn't look close, it is more comfortable. However, the numerous passages and the internal cooling pipes that occasionally appear outside still make it clear that this is on a spaceship, not a pure research institute. Chen Ming's hand was on the hull of the spaceship, but he didn't dare to control the new cruiser yet. He was afraid that he would faint as soon as he took control. It's better to follow the boss and take the internal fast-moving elevator to get familiar with the spaceship. Although this high point has various large equipment installed at the head and tail, Chen Ming followed the boss and found that there is still a lot of space inside the spaceship. Especially the slender part of the hull connecting the head and tail in the middle, the unused space is larger. Chen Ming felt that he could install various things in these places. For example, the research institute and workshop he needs now. But if he wants to modify the cruiser, he still has to wait. The boss obviously noticed the empty space inside the spaceship and said, "This ship is the prototype of the highest point. So there are no fancy things on the ship, but I think you should be able to handle it yourself." "It's not good now. The most I can do now is to get some finished products. I don't know much about the technology used in the cruiser. It's a matter of time." As the boss said this, he suddenly realized that Chen Ming seemed to be controlling the elevator control panel by himself, instead of using psychic power. He asked in a strange way, "You haven't controlled the spaceship yet?" "Well, because I'm afraid of fainting." Chen Ming took off the helmet of his protective suit, revealing his messy hair like a hamster nest, and Xiao Shi, who was sleeping on Chen Ming's head, had dark circles under his eyes and bloodshot red eyes. "You. It took a while to get out of you Huey's final stage. I didn't sleep for 2 days, and I also spent some mental energy on repairing the spaceship." And as he talked with his boss, Chen Ming saw that the excitement at the peak was gradually fading, and fatigue was rising, and he was almost at his limit. The boss frowned slightly at Chen Ming's condition and said, "Then let's change our plan. I was counting on you to drive the ship, but you can't drive the spaceship in this state. Go find a place to rest first, and we'll talk about the rest when you wake up." Chen Ming really couldn't bear it anymore and asked, "Is there a place to rest on the ship?" "Yes. Which ship doesn't have a place for people to rest?" "I also specifically asked the newcomer to dismantle most of the redundant living areas according to your needs. The exploration ship that could originally accommodate more than 2,000 people can now only accommodate 5 people at most. The conditions may be better than what you live in the space station." Chen Ming said, "Then I'll rest on the ship. I usually sleep on the ship." "Well, I sent you the map of the spaceship on my terminal. I won't tell you in detail where to find food. Remember to check the things in the room. The things Bai Quan gave have also been delivered to your room." Hearing this, Chen Ming suddenly became more energetic. After all, what Bai Quan promised before were all good things. But Chen Ming's consciousness was immediately shrouded by sleepiness again. In extreme fatigue, nothing could stimulate him to be more energetic. Chen Ming just agreed casually and prepared to leave. Before leaving, the boss asked Chen Ming, "So, see you in the afternoon or tomorrow?" Chen Ming looked at the time. It was just after midnight, and he needed a very full rest. So he said, "Maybe tomorrow." The boss nodded and said nothing. He returned the same way and left the spaceship. Chen Ming successfully passed the map and arrived at his room in the living area in the middle of the spaceship. Although it is called a room, in fact, the place for Chen Ming to live here is a suite. 3 bedrooms, 1 living room, 1 bathroom, and even a small kitchen. After all, if the resources of other living areas and living facilities are reduced, the quality of life for a single person will definitely be improved. 3 rooms, 1 is a bedroom, 1 is a study, and 1 is an empty room, which can be used as a storage room to store some things. There is nothing good about the bedroom and the empty room. However, there is a whole wall of bookcases in the study. The bookcase is full of various physical books. Although the contents are relatively different, these books can be classified into one category. They are all technical books. Chen Ming even saw a few technical books that seem to be from the 14th Corps. It seems that the boss and the 14th Corps have agreed. All the books related to electromagnetic technology and anti-electromagnetic technology that Bai Quan promised Chen Ming to need were placed here. In addition, a large number of basic cruiser-level technologies were attached, allowing Chen Ming to get started. No wonder the boss just said that it is only a matter of time before Chen Ming masters the transformation of cruisers. And next to the bookcase, there is a special storage cabinet with several electronic cards. Chen Ming picked one at random and inserted it into the terminal to take a look. He found that this card was linked to an identity card. It allowed Chen Ming to log in to a platform where many scientific researchers uploaded papers and academic reports. If Chen Ming read it himself, he would have to pay for it, and there was a limit on the number of times he could read it every day. With this card, he could view these papers on this platform without restriction, which was very helpful for learning and technical research. The other cards were the same and could log in to different platforms in the Empire. It can be said to be quite considerate. I don't know whether it was prepared by the boss or by Quan. Chen Ming felt that it was more likely that the boss prepared it, because on a large desk next to the bookcase, there were 3 gift boxes, which should be what Bai Quan gave. Chen Ming opened the gift box and took a look. In the first gift box, there was a savings card and a storage card. This savings card in the name of Bai Quan had 2 billion funds, which was what Bai Quan said before, to compensate Chen Ming for the iron ore. Wait, speaking of the iron ore, Chen Ming suddenly remembered something. He rummaged in his pocket and took out the amber-shaped condensed spiritual energy source. The shadow inside, that is, the ship's spirit, was circling the mini iron ore in the amber in a bored way. Chen Ming's mouth corners slightly raised, and he gently tapped the amber and whispered, "You can come out. This ship will be my ship from now on." The ship's spirit suddenly stopped circling, showing a joyful mood, and ran out of the amber in a blink of an eye, infiltrating this supreme point. It should take some time for it to completely control this ship. So Chen Ming continued to look at the storage card in the gift box. This card also came with a document. This document includes most of the cruiser models currently on the market and also includes various data of the spacecraft and even some ship models within the 14th Corps. Obviously, this is the cruiser that Bai Quan promised to compensate Chen Ming before. Chen Ming can make a choice based on the detailed data in this document. Chen Ming might have wanted an exploration cruiser before, but he hasn't made up his mind yet, so he'll put it aside for now. Then there's the second gift box. There's only one thing in this gift box: an Alpha-class Afterglow core. Controlling the Afterglow core doesn't require any mental power, so Chen Ming directly controlled it and opened its panel. Afterglow Alpha-class AI core, HRYY1, APGU2. Manufacturer, Afterglow B01 Colony Near Earth Orbit Industrial Facility. Self-awareness, hibernation. Computing power, galaxy level. Executable operations, none. This is indeed a genuine Afterglow. If Chen Ming knew earlier that Bai Quan had sent this thing over, he could actually let this individual control this supreme point. Only a signal access device is needed, unlike the Brilliant, which requires dismantling a ship hull more than 100 meters thick to access the Brilliant core. But it is not necessary now. After all, the boss has left. And Chen Ming's mental state is not good now. It will be better to recover after the light. Then we can talk about this alpha level afterglow in detail. Chen Ming put the alpha core back into the box. Then he continued to open the last gift box. Chen Ming sensed a faint psychic fluctuation from it at the beginning, so he deliberately left it for the last. When the box was opened, Chen Ming saw the psychic weapon that belonged to him. An exquisite revolver. There seemed to be a firefly-like pattern etched on the gun body, which was very beautiful. Chen Ming's eyes were completely attracted by it for a while, and he couldn't move away for a long time. In addition to the appearance of the revolver, Chen Ming was also observing the manufacturing process of the revolver. He could be sure that the process used in this revolver was modern. But the design is indeed a retro design, and it is not retro for the current era. But in the true sense, it is the style of the revolver about 1 or 2 centuries after it was designed. The overall material of the gun body is very similar to the silver firefly alloy, a special grade material called silver firefly, and an alloy of other metals. Based on the weight and color of the hand, Chen Ming feels that the alloy should be Baiyun steel. After all, this thing is strong and beautiful. At the same time, a little high-value sky steel is also mixed in, which has an almost invisible indigo color under the light. This silver firefly alloy is generally used for heat dissipation of battleship-level weapons. The strength and performance of various metal materials must meet the standards. To be honest, it is quite luxurious to use it only as a revolver material. However, Chen Ming found that the material of the pistol in front of him was said to be silver firefly alloy, but it seemed different when he looked closely. At least as far as Chen Ming knows, this material has no psychic fluctuations. And this revolver has psychic fluctuations not only on one part, but on the whole gun. All the materials are emitting psychic fluctuations, including the wooden material that Chen Ming has never seen before, which covers the handle. This should not be natural, but the effect achieved by using the technology of making psychic weapons. Chen Ming is not curious about this technology, and it is useless to be curious. Even the boss may not know about this. And there is something like a certificate in this gift box. Chen Ming picked up the certificate and took a look. Found that it was an introduction to the weapon here. It said that it was designed by a master designer certified by the Empire and was the only weapon exclusively for Chen Ming. It was named Ming. I don't know whether it was by Quan's idea or the designer knew that it was designed for him, so he gave it this name. Chen Ming didn't mind. And Bai Quan didn't know where he got Chen Ming's physical data from, and he specially marked it in the design introduction of this revolver, saying that it perfectly fits his ergonomics. So Chen Ming tried it himself. The first time he held it, he felt that his palm and the handle fit perfectly, and it was very comfortable to hold. In the second time, Chen Ming felt that his mental power seemed to be stimulated, and it was a positive stimulation. But his mental state was not good now, and this stimulation could not stimulate Chen Ming's brain, which was already exhausted to the extreme. It seems that he still needs to wait for a good sleep. However, Chen Ming suddenly noticed that the certificate was accompanied by a website in Shanghai. It seems that it is still a website that is not open to the public internet. So Chen Ming took the terminal to log in and take a look. When a big title, Psychic Population Census Network, appeared, Chen Ming wanted to turn it off directly. However, when he opened the website, he saw that his account had been logged in. Obviously, Bai Quan had investigated several of his identity information and helped him register. It was useless to turn it off. So Chen Ming took a look at the website. This thing is called a population census website, but in fact Chen Ming can only look at his own situation. The website also only records some of the simplest identity information and the general types of psychics. Since Chen Ming has not systematically studied psychics and has not undergone specific psychic physical examinations, so the content written on it is also very vague. His psychic type is judged to be auxiliary psychic, and his psychic ability is just 4 words, controlling the spacecraft. But Chen Ming feels that this website should have more functions than this, and it seems that he has to ask his boss for his opinion later. In addition, Chen Ming also found an affiliated website on this website. Imperial Psychic Weapon List. When Chen Ming opened this thing, he found that Bai Quan also helped him register. His Ming was displayed on it. However, this thing is the same as the Psychic Census website. Basically, you can only see your own. The only difference is that there is one more option. Let Chen Ming see some. When the psychic is dead, but the psychic weapons belonging to the dead psychic are not used or cannot be used. Some unique psychic weapons specially collected by the Empire. Obviously, the owners of these collected psychic weapons must have made contributions to the Empire. Chen Ming took a quick look and closed the website. Because he had not yet finished studying this Ming, although the content of the manual ended at the website. But Chen Ming remembered that his boss had said before that psychic weapons seemed to be able to be inlaid with spiritual stones. So Chen Ming looked carefully at the Ming in his hand. He found that there was a decorative metal block at the bottom of its handle that could be removed. This was the only component on the entire gun that did not have psychic fluctuations. The groove left after removing the metal block seemed to be able to be inlaid with spiritual stones. The boss mentioned before that psychic weapons have a slight amplification effect on spiritual stones. Generally, spiritual stones with positive effects are inlaid on psychic weapons, such as the boss's gentleness. However, since Chen Ming's frenzy language spiritual stone has resonated and can be controlled at any time, it should be possible to inlay it. But the problem is that the size of the spiritual stone is wrong. You can't cut off a part and then inlay it, right? I still have to ask this question later. Chen Ming made another note of the question in his mind. After confirming that there was nothing else he needed to do urgently, he packed up all the things in front of him and came to the bedroom. Looking at the soft and comfortable big bed in front of him, Chen Ming was about to lie down. But he suddenly stopped his action. Because at this time, Bai Quan suddenly contacted him, asking for his help. Chen Ming's actions in the entire plan he arranged were very efficient and fast, even faster than Bai Quan's. So now that Chen Ming has returned, Bai Quan is still in the Yuhui star field, fighting with Yu Hui. Bai Quan suddenly asked for help, and Chen Ming did not fall asleep or faint. Then he couldn't just pretend that he didn't see it, so he could only cheer up again, throw Xiao Shi on the bed, and leave the bedroom he had been thinking about for 2 days. After washing his face, he sat down in the study and listened to Bai Quan's story. Just when Chen Ming's previous plan was more than half executed and 2 galaxies showed signs of being discovered by Yu Hui, he contacted Bai Quan. And Bai Quan also started his raid at that time. There are detailed coordinates of the galaxy where the giant dock of the new star is located, provided by Chen Ming, and even a data on the revolution of planets in the galaxy. Allow Bai Quan to accurately locate the specific positions of different planets in different time periods and lock the giant dock located in the orbit of a planet in the galaxy. This allowed him to lead the fleet to jump directly to the giant dock inside the galaxy. The raid was very smooth until this point. But when the attack actually began, Bai Quan encountered some problems. The protective ability of Yu Hui's giant dock was unexpectedly strong. Not only was it a giant dock capable of manufacturing battleships, but also because Yu Hui equipped it with a battleship-level shield. Bai Quan thought that this should be the shield of the new star-level battleship under construction, and it had not been installed yet, so he used it temporarily for the dock. As a result, Bai Quan failed to take down the dock in the first place, and delayed the arrival of Yu Hui's reinforcements. As the battle line dragged on, the battle entered the most fierce confrontation stage. But fortunately, because of the agreement with Chen Ming in advance, Bai Quan and Chen Ming helped each other to share the pressure, so that Bai Quan would not have to face more Yu Hui reinforcements in a short time. Although the losses in this process were very huge, it also dealt a heavy blow to Yu Hui. Bai Quan lost nearly half of its cruisers and more than half of its destroyers. In exchange, one of Yu Hui's battleships was sunk. As long as the retreat is successful, even if there are such losses, it will be a great victory. Battleships are not on the same level as any other warships. It is basically a sure win to exchange ordinary spaceships for battleships, unless you exchange hundreds or even thousands of cruisers for a battleship. Then it is indeed a loss after converting the cost. But Bai Quan is obviously not at this standard of loss now. Hearing this, Chen Ming asked, "Since you don't plan to retreat, and you still need my help, there must be another reason, right?" Bai Quan was still commanding the battlefield at this time, and said to Chen Ming, "There are 2 reasons. Although we did destroy a battleship, it was not the Nova Class one under construction. Because Yuhui's support came very quickly, we couldn't continue to attack the giant dock under the firepower of the support, so we could only choose to deal with the reinforcements first. Since Yuhui only had one radiation class support at the beginning, the result was like this. I relied on 2 offensive class ships to forcibly destroy it, but this also delayed it. Yuhui's subsequent reinforcements have also arrived. That's the situation now. But I don't plan to give up the idea of Nova class. Yuhui's subsequent reinforcements are only 2 battleships, which should be because you helped me share some of the burden. Bai Quan was right about this. There were 2 battleships tracking Chen Ming. A Yuhui controlled by Chen Ming dealing with the border galaxy. The other one followed Chen Ming's buttocks and was killed by the boss. Chen Ming did not respond, and Bai Quan did not care. His guess must be correct. There is another possible reason why Yuhui's reinforcements are so few. That is, they are afraid. They are worried that we are still making a feint to the east and attacking the west like last time. So they should have 1 or 2 remaining battleships that they dare not use casually. I originally planned to stop here, but Yuhui is now urgently starting the new star class that has not been completed. I see an opportunity in it. Chen Ming couldn't help but ask, "You don't want to wait for the new star class to take off and kill it surrounded by several battleships?" Bai Quan immediately denied, "I won't do stupid things. I just plan to arrange a special operations team to sneak into the giant dock, perform infiltration missions, and find ways to destroy the new star class. If the new star class is parked there, there is really no chance, but once it is started, opportunities are everywhere." What Bai Quan said seems to make sense, but Chen Ming still asked, "It's a good idea, but why did you think of looking for me?" "Because you said before that there are also some Yuhui controlled by you and my target." Chen Ming turned his somewhat stiff brain and recalled carefully, and found that it was true. It was just yesterday or the day before yesterday. He just said it. It seems that he is a little tired and confused. But there is really no problem in helping Bai Quan. Chen Ming's idea is very simple. After he escapes, Yuhui will definitely conduct a thorough investigation inside, and will definitely investigate all the Yuhui individuals that Chen Ming, Gamma A, Hui Huang, and Hui Yao have contacted, and follow the clues. It may even clean up the entire star field, and all the related individuals will not escape. He will definitely not be able to protect the Yuhui individuals controlled by him in such an important place as the giant dock. So just let them do their last bit at this time. So Chen Ming agreed to Bai Quan's request and asked, "What are the specific methods?" "Yuhui strictly guards places like the dock, and the Yuhui I control can only contact the outer areas." Bai Quan suddenly analyzed, "You can control so many Yuhui, it must not be controlled by you one by one, right?" Without waiting for Chen Ming to answer, he continued, "So you must have the ability to spread your spiritual power over a large area. But you can't control the entire Yuhui star field. Either your mental power is not enough to continue to control it, or your spiritual power diffusion effect must be limited. Looking at the situation of this giant dock, I think it is the latter. Otherwise, if it were me, I would rather sacrifice some of the Yuhui that I have already controlled and control the entire giant dock. So I guess that your spiritual power can only be indirectly spread with the help of some things. Is it Yuhui himself?" Chen Ming didn't say anything, and Bai Quan guessed his ability again. Or it should not be called guessing, but analysis. Knowing the general effect of Chen Ming's psychic power, knowing the role of Chen Ming's psychic power, and knowing the final results of Chen Ming's psychic power, it is indeed possible to analyze it roughly. Bai Quan continued to speak. "My team should be able to take the Yuhui individuals you control and continue to spread your abilities. You can definitely do a lot more." Chen Ming supported his forehead and forced himself to be alert so that he could think more rationally. Bai Quan's mission goal has actually been achieved. The achievement of destroying a Yuhui radiation-class battleship should be great enough, at least compared to the last achievement of losing thousands of warships, but without any result. So in the face of Bai Quan's current additional request, Chen Ming decided to decline. "I haven't rested since 2 days ago. It took me a lot of energy to escape from Yuhui. I need to rest." But Bai Quan seemed to have misunderstood Chen Ming's meaning. He translated Chen Ming's truth into 3 words. You have to pay more. So he said, as long as we can win, you have the final say, just don't go too far. Bai Quan's words have completely placed his hopes on Chen Ming. Chen Ming immediately began to think about what type of cruiser with an alpha core he should get from Bai Quan. However, he immediately stopped thinking in his mind and said very rationally, even if I lose, I will have to pay for lost work. If I lose, I may not be able to go back. Tisk. Bai Quan looked at the big tisk displayed on the panel in front of him, and for some reason he suddenly smiled. He said, 2 billion, that's all my inheritance is. Deal. So how do you get your people up there? It's not that easy to get into the giant dock. Reinforced assault boats. Chen Ming frowned and asked, boarding? What era is it now? It doesn't matter what era it is. What matters is that this method is still effective. Although we usually use robots, we can only use people to carry out sophisticated sabotage missions now. The risk is extremely high, but the benefits and risks are equal. Our 14th Corps promotion depends on military merits. Failure means death, but once successful, the future is immeasurable. Chen Ming asked in confusion, will anyone be willing to do this? Yes. It was the same last time, if I hadn't had some problems. No matter how difficult the conditions are, as long as there is a possibility of success, we will still carry out the plan to raid Yuhui Kleka after rescuing you. You can see the risks, but once you succeed, you also know what you will gain. Chen Ming always likes to consider the worst results and asked, what about failure? I also know the consequences of failure, so I have already left a retreat in my last plan, and I am confident enough to retreat. Chen Ming still didn't understand and said, but there shouldn't be anyone who can execute this plan. Before, when I completed the mission before I was promoted to Major General, I didn't have it either. Bai Quan's words, which were calm but full of despair, and the bloody smell of turning over in despair, made Chen Ming's heart tremble. The serious soldiers of the 14th Corps seemed to be a little crazy. Chen Ming thought about it carefully. Bai Quan's idea was not bad for him. It's just that some individuals of Yuhui who were destined to be lost might be lost, and it would be more tiring. Bai Quan has stayed at Yuhui for too long, and Yuhui will soon stop tracking Chen Ming and arrange more reinforcements to Bai Quan. Bai Quan will stay for the last 2 or 3 hours at most, and then he will be forced to retreat. Chen Ming only needs to hold on for a little longer, and the results should be out. Moreover, Chen Ming only controls a few Gamma-level Yuhui at the giant dock, and there are only so many things he can do. If something really happens, it won't be Chen Ming's turn to take action, or it's meaningless for him to take action. So Chen Ming agreed and asked, what do you plan to do specifically? The team that will carry out the mission will tell you the specific details of the plan. I will temporarily hand over my terminal to them. Well, that's not necessary. Just put the terminal down first. Bai Quan did as he was told and put the terminal in his hand aside. Although Chen Ming's current ability is still somewhat limited. For example, he cannot control other mechanical equipment through the mechanical equipment he controls. Only the afterglow he controls can do so. Therefore, he cannot now connect the terminal to make a second terminal that he can control and hand it to the team that will carry out the mission to facilitate contact with him. So Bai Quan would consider handing his terminal to the team that will carry the mission. After all, the help Chen Ming can provide to him now is definitely not as great as the help he can provide to the team that actually enters the giant dock. However, since Chen Ming did not let him do this, it is obvious that he has come up with a solution. A way to proliferate mechanical equipment. After Bai Quan put down the terminal, Chen Ming directly modified the terminal. Metal liquid appeared in the void in front of Bai Quan, flowing and wrapping the terminal. Bai Quan, who was commanding the fleet, couldn't help but look at this thing twice. This was the first time he saw Chen Ming's psychic power in action. Chen Ming quickly transformed the terminal into 2 complete communication systems that could run simultaneously. Then he used the ability of transformation and disassembly to disassemble one of the communication systems that was fully matched with the terminal. Then he modified the original terminal back to the most basic model, which no longer had a second communication system from the design point of view, and returned it to Bai Quan. Then, Chen Ming modified the disassembled communication device and converted it into a new terminal that was exactly the same. His idea was completed. This operation is somewhat similar to the effect of using transformation to achieve manufacturing, but the manufacturing is limited to Chen Ming's side and the spacecraft controlled by Chen Ming. The transformation ability is not. It is only limited to the mechanical creations controlled by Chen Ming. It is equivalent to applying the influence of transformation wherever there is something that Chen Ming has touched. It all depends on Chen Ming's imagination and creativity. Can he find some loopholes in the limitation of his ability to exploit? Of course, this should not be considered a loophole, but a characteristic, the characteristic of his spiritual power. For example, now, as long as Chen Ming masters a manufacturing technology, he can use a reasonable way to transform a part of what he wants to make on any mechanical creation, and then use the transformation method to manufacture it completely. This method has an advantage, that is, the consumption of mental power is far less than that of manufacturing. Usually Chen Ming has a lot of mental power, and he doesn't care about the consumption of some spiritual power. If he consumes more, he can also exercise his mental power. But at this time, any consumption of mental power may become the last straw that completely crushes him. So even if Chen Ming can directly create a new terminal next to Baiquan, he should use this trick at this time. The proliferated terminal was quickly delivered to the person it should be delivered to. A team of 5 people. Chen Ming suddenly asked Baiquan at this time, "You only arranged one team?" "More than that, but only one team is ready to act now. It is not advisable to have too many people in the infiltration mission because communication will be very inconvenient after entering the dock, and they may interfere with each other when performing the mission. If you can help realize interference-free real-time communication among several teams, then I can indeed send several teams out together." Chen Ming can do it in theory, but now he can't because of his mental strength. So Chen Ming didn't say anything and let Baiquan follow his own plan. Baiquan had already explained the mission of this special operations team clearly before, and now after issuing specific action instructions. The captain of this special operations team also understood the function of the terminal sent by the superiors. He knocked on the terminal and asked, "Mr. Chun, can you hear it?" "Well, just say it." "Yes." The captain responded subconsciously and began to briefly explain what they were going to do next. "Our mission goal this time is to destroy the New Star unmanned battlecruiser. It is almost impossible to destroy this 10,000-meter class battleship under the protection of other battleships and giant docks. But we can use some tricks." The captain took out an obviously simplified blueprint of the giant dock, which marked several locations. Yu Hui's giant dock technology was stolen from us. After so many years, the details may have changed, but the big picture will not change. He pointed to one of the marked locations and said, "In order to facilitate the transportation of materials inside the giant dock, there is a node of the gravity simulating module at this location in the design. The use of the gravity simulating module is limited. It cannot be in the shape of a cover, so the entire giant dock will be affected by gravity. But when building a spacecraft, it is more convenient to have a zero-gravity environment. So Yu Hui arranged a gravity magnetic resistor here." The captain's hand moved to another position. Gravity magnetic repellents can be used to resist the influence of their own gravity simulating systems and speed up construction efficiency. "No need to tell me the specific details of the equipment. I know them all. You just need to tell me the specific plan." "Yes." The captain responded and said according to Chen Ming's request, "What we have to do is to sneak in here and dismantle the gravity magnetic repellent. As long as the new star has not had time to start completely, its own weight will cause it to self-destruct directly, and it may even destroy a considerable part of the giant dock." Chen Ming suddenly asked a hypothetical question. "What if Yu Hui has turned off the gravity simulating module and the gravity magnetic repellent? The new star is parked at the bottom of the dock. How do you deal with it?" "Then we restart the gravity simulating module and reverse the direction of gravity." Chen Ming nodded slightly. It seems that the plan they arranged is still complete. The final goal is also set on the gravity simulating module, which is usually very safe and will not necessarily explode even if the spacecraft is destroyed. Even if Yu Hui wanted to take the initiative to dismantle it, he had to consider the impact of this thing really exploding on the giant dock itself. However, the protection here must be extremely strict. The special operations team should have been prepared. I'm curious about one thing. How can you come back? The assault boat can go back, or we can surrender to Yu Hui directly. Yu Hui has never taken the initiative to kill people in non-combat situations. They will use us to trade with the army. All prisoners can go back safely. Chen Ming has no problem here. Okay, you do it. I will help you when necessary. Yes. The captain obeyed Chen Ming's instructions as if he was obeying an order from his superiors and took his team members out of the prepared room. They were going to embark on the most dangerous journey for the most valuable results in this battle. I don't know if they can come back alive, or even if they can arrive alive. Chen Ming was a little concerned about them at this time, but it is useless to care. If they fail, the next batch of special operations teams will take over, and no one will remember them. Maybe Chen Ming will remember them for a while, because they are a bit similar to Chen Ming's past. They are all insignificant little people. No one would care about or remember a few small employees on a mining space station. But now, Chen Ming is already a person who can influence the Star Region Joint War Zone. Bai Quan, who said that he had no way out, was obviously also an insignificant little person. But now he has become a major general of the empire. He should also be able to understand the feelings and thoughts of the little people in order to seize the opportunity. Or, Bai Quan has no longer cared about these because he has experienced more personally. But anyway, Chen Ming can't help but care. After all, he has experienced such pain. And it is also the first time that he has seen someone willing to pay the price of his life to achieve his goal. The impact of this personal experience is still more obvious than watching other people's deeds. It's like hearing about an accident that killed so many people and hearing about a neighbor being hit and killed by a car in front of you. Obviously, the latter can make people feel more emotional fluctuations. Chen Ming felt almost the same way now. No, Chen Ming thought about it carefully, and it seemed that there was. He had seen people who were willing to sacrifice their lives in exchange for the realization of their goals. But it was not a person, but Yu Hui, and it was brilliant. Chen Ming shook his head slightly and temporarily stopped the strange thoughts in his mind. If he continued to watch, the ending of these people might be known soon. A few minutes later, the fleet of the 14th Corps suddenly launched a large-scale assault boat. Among a bunch of assault boats filled with closed structures and only damaged robots in the system logic, there was one carrying this special operations team. After suffering great losses, these assault boats passed through the dense firepower network between the fleets. From the top, bottom, and flank of the battle line, Yu Hui was attacked by Bai Quan and had not been able to organize a decent resistance until now. Of the hundreds of assault boats launched at one time, only 10% successfully broke through. And the one carrying the special operations team happened to be one of them. The fate of the special operations team members seems to be undecided. It is partly due to luck and partly due to the landing location they chose. Because they are now in the cargo transportation area where the Yu Hui controlled by Chen Ming is mainly distributed. This is an important but not too important place. The important thing is that the materials needed for ship manufacturing and daily maintenance of the entire giant dock basically rely on these cargo areas located in different locations of the dock. But the unimportant thing is that there is more than one cargo area for transporting these materials. The only thing that the wandering Yu Hui controlled by Chen Ming can contact in the giant dock is the outermost cargo area. So he has the most say now and knows best what the cargo area of the dock is like. When there is an attack like the one the giant dock is currently facing, the cargo area has no meaning. There is no material being transported at all. And all the Yu Hui individuals controlling this area are basically installed in a relatively close position to the inside, and there is no possibility of being dug out by someone. And the really urgent materials cannot stay here for more than a few minutes. In case of an emergency, they must be transported away as soon as possible. So now it can almost be said that this is the place with the lowest security level in the entire giant dock. Even Yu Hui's defense measures for the assault boats that he dealt with externally were the same. It would be better to let more assault boats pass in this direction, and it is impossible to let assault boats successfully break through other more important areas. There is nothing wrong with thinking about it. Since the high-value materials have been transported away long ago, the low-value materials are definitely not as good as various equipment. Even if there are logistics equipment here, the value of logistics equipment is not expensive at all. If it breaks, it can be replaced with a new one. So when this wave of assault boats successfully penetrated the shield that the giant dock forcibly used through physical means, it was completely unable to protect against attacks below the main weapons. And after the armor that had been destroyed in the first wave of Baichuan's 2 offensive-level raids, Chen Ming could clearly feel that the situation here was different from the surrounding areas where the vibrations of the battle continued to come. The protection level here is relatively low, and the scale of the conflict that can break out is naturally smaller. In fact, there is another reason for the low security level here. The cargo transportation area is a relatively open area, and there are only a certain number of logistics devices serving as shelters. It is not a good place for both offense and defense. So Yuhui basically did not consider defending here and directly closed all logistics channels. The most basic defense force relies on some basic turrets and working robots with some combat functions. With these things blocking, it is impossible for invaders to be broken through in the first time, and it is enough to support until the subsequent reinforcements arrive. Even if it does not hold up, it will be successfully broken through by invaders. Then this cargo transportation area is also an area not far from all other places. It takes a while to go anywhere. There must be many opportunities to block along the way, and there is almost no possibility of breaking through the giant dock from here. There is no need to arrange too much defense here. But almost, as long as it exists, there is still a possibility of breaking through here. Just like what the captain of the special operations team just said. The entire giant dock was designed by humans, and Yuhui just modified it and used it. Therefore, there are still many freight passages or other routes that cannot be removed. Yuhui can't leave them unused, so usually some robots will be sent here to do some auxiliary work. These extra freight passages for humans mean more space and more opportunities. And these are the biggest weaknesses of the giant dock. The above are the intelligence that Chen Ming quickly analyzed through the information he has. However, just knowing these is useless. The specific implementation still depends on how the special operations team on the scene does it. At this time, their assault boats and the other 3 assault boats that followed them were lying upright on the deck of the cargo transportation area. But there was no movement on the 4 assault boats. However, this still attracted some of Yuhui's internal defense measures. Including Yuhui's robots and several automatic turrets, all have aimed their weapons at the assault boats. It's just that the assault boats themselves are very strong, and the weapons used for internal defense of the dock may not be able to be successfully destroyed. There is a high probability of wasting bullets or energy. So the Yuhui security system that locked onto the speedboat was still waiting for an opportunity. However, several minutes had passed, and there was still no movement on the speedboat. This attracted the Yuhui individual in charge of this area to control one of the robots and move forward, preparing to find a way to open the hatch of the speedboat and see what was happening inside. Of course, during the process of Yuhui making such a decision, the special operations team in the assault boat had been silent, which was definitely not because they had not done anything. They had been preparing. In particular, the team member who was responsible for electronic technology in the team was controlling the robots in the other 3 assault boats that came together. Although under normal circumstances, the assault boat itself has only one goal of breaking through the defense line, and the robots inside are also in a state of indiscriminate attack. But these 3 assault boats are different. They took the initiative to follow the assault boats of the special operations team from the beginning, always covering them and increasing their survival probability. And the robots on it are specially made, and they are not purely closed to the outside world like other robots that are only for destruction. Therefore, these robots can also accept orders. This team member is now tinkering with these things, especially with the help of Chen Ming. Chen Ming can directly use the information obtained by the Gamma-level Yuhui who was previously responsible for this cargo transportation area. Mark the locations of all nearby monitoring equipment and fix turrets and hand them over to this team member. At the same time, he can also use the control authority that has not been terminated yet to confirm the surrounding environment through the cameras on the equipment here and give the location of several protective robots to this team member. And he can also provide some internal data codes of these nearby devices. Then cooperate with the team members to directly hack into the system and obtain some additional information. Confirm all the hidden monitoring and protective facilities that ordinary Yuhui individuals cannot access. These devices may cause Yuhui to notice that the assault boats here are not robots, but humans. If this is discovered, it will definitely affect the subsequent actions. Yuhui can guess that humans have special plans and will definitely guard this area strictly. So before the official action begins, they must deal with all the things in this area that may expose their whereabouts. Hack what can be hacked, and if it can't be hacked, the team member who masters electronic technology lightly pressed a button on the unique terminal in his hand. The hatches of the other 3 assault boats next to him suddenly opened together. Several professional combat robots rushed out from inside. Under the condition of turning on perspective, the Yuhui robot that dared to approach was destroyed in an instant. At the same time, it began to destroy all the monitoring equipment in the cargo area and some turrets that had separate lines and could not be hacked with extremely high efficiency. Quickly took the initiative in the battle. It took only 2 or 3 minutes to completely clean up the cargo area. At the same time, it cut off any possibility of observing the internal situation of the cargo area from other places. Of course, they did not destroy all the cameras, but still retained some. None of the remaining cameras could be aimed at the road they would take later, and they could only monitor other places in the cargo area. While covering their whereabouts, they would not leave too many human traces. But now, no matter what, they are in Yuhui's giant dock, so support will definitely arrive soon. Even if their whereabouts are covered, they must act quickly. Several team members immediately rushed out of the assault boat and ran to a closed cargo channel along a location marked for them on the map of the dock just now by Chen Ming. The door at this location was locked and locked by force by a higher level of authority. Yuhui, who was controlled by Chen Ming, only had the authority to control the equipment and some monitoring equipment. Now there was no possibility of opening this door. It could only rely on the special operations team. This was also something that Chen Ming had confirmed with the team in advance that they could solve. Otherwise, if even one door could not be handled, the subsequent infiltration and sabotage plan would be empty talk, and there was no need to even think about executing it. It would be better to go back to sleep. The captain brought his 4 team members to the closed metal door. 2 team members took out cutting tools, but did not start immediately, but looked at the electronic technician team member. So the teammate took out a half-palm-sized electronic device from the mounting slot of the lightweight exoskeleton armor on his body. He swung the electronic device next to the door for a few times, and after hearing the obvious beeping sound, he directly attached it to the closed door. His eyes were locked on the terminal in his hand. 10 seconds later, the closed metal door suddenly opened, and a freight channel appeared in front of them. After receiving the signal from the electronic technicians to pass, the group filed in. After the team member recovered the electronic device he had just attached to the door closed again. With some of the internal data feature codes provided by Chen Ming, the electronic technicians easily hacked the surveillance along the way. The surveillance camera looped the video footage of everything going normally in the few seconds they passed by, and they would not notice their presence at all. The team passed through the cargo channel smoothly and quickly. Soon, according to the route planned by Chen Ming at the beginning, they arrived at a small warehouse for temporary storage of surplus and excess materials. Although Yuhui's computing ability is quite good, he is very accurate in estimating the amount of materials required for shipbuilding and daily maintenance of the dock. Under normal circumstances, the materials can be used up just right, and there will be no excess materials piled up. But the general situation is the general situation, and there will always be unexpected times. In addition, Yuhui learned the habit of leaving some margin from humans, and they usually prepare some excess materials. If there is an accident and it is not enough, send it together. If it is not needed, it will be piled up in this warehouse and processed together when it is piled up. So this small warehouse has always had its meaning of existence. The team now entered the warehouse. After confirming that the warehouse is safe, the 2 team members quickly started to install a device they brought with them on the spot. It is a terrain detection device that has a strong effect in detecting terrain, but the use distance is very short. It can only be activated after entering the dock. Although the team has a part of the map of the giant dock provided by Chen Ming. But the afterglow controlled by Chen Ming is just an ordinary gamma-level afterglow responsible for cargo work. It has been restricted to the nearby area. After the team arrived at the warehouse, the intelligence it has mastered has come to an end. It is still necessary to analyze the difference between the actual situation and the drawings faced by the team through various means. By analyzing the deeper situation of the giant dock, we know the subtle modification positions made by afterglow when manufacturing the giant dock. In this way, we can formulate the specific plan to be implemented next. Taking advantage of this time, Chen Ming said to the captain who was on guard at the door of the warehouse, "Go to the wall behind you." Although the captain was puzzled, he still followed Chen Ming's order. He waved his hand to signal the team members who had nothing to do temporarily to replace him and continue to be on guard. And he came to the wall that Chen Ming mentioned. The metal wall suddenly opened, revealing a small space full of dense lines. In the center of this space is an iron-red afterglow gamma core. Originally, the gamma afterglow controlled by Chen Ming was responsible for the equipment work in the cargo area. And the reason why it can provide Chen Ming with a map that has penetrated into the giant dock for a distance is here. This is the location for installing the core. The core popped out automatically, and at the same time, a data line that can be connected to the gamma core appeared next to it after the metal liquid flowed through it. You know how to use it? Yes. The captain reached out to put the core away and handed it to the electronic technical team member. Chen Ming did not express his opinion. Anyway, he was just providing help. The specific process of the mission goal had nothing to do with him. Soon, the two team members who were busy installing the equipment indicated that the equipment had been installed and began to scan the surrounding environment in real time. The scan produced results almost immediately. A three-dimensional imaging map projection with a fairly complete structure appeared above the equipment. Chen Ming, who did not know much about the internal environment, also took a closer look and found that the giant dock could be divided into three areas. The outermost area is the cargo area and the protective equipment area. The transit area in the middle and the area where various equipment for maintaining the giant dock exist. The innermost area is the actual dock and shipyard area, but there is no detailed imaging for reference. The captain had similar ideas to Chen Ming. He gestured twice on the map projection and said to other team members, "Our mission this time is to pass through these three areas and go to the innermost layer of the giant dock. The outermost and most dangerous area has passed, and we are now at the outermost of the middle area. Next, just follow the logistics transportation to the cargo distribution center in the transit area, and you can continue to go to the inside." The goods sent to the cargo distribution center from the outermost freight area after strict inspection will be classified in more detail here, and then distributed to different facilities in the middle area. That is, some places such as power generation divisions that actually need material replenishment. However, the team's ultimate goal is still in the core area where the giant dock shipyard is located. The captain pointed his hand at the map projection and said, "The gravity magnetic device is right there." A team member held the gun in his hand and said, "The security there must be tighter than outside." That's right, there are only 5 of us in total, and it is impossible to go all the way in. So we can't go directly through the logistics channel, we must choose another way. The captain suddenly said respectfully, "Mr. Chan, what's the matter? We just need to connect this Yuhui core to a place with a data cable, right?" "Yes." The captain said respectfully again, "I understand." He pointed his hand at the map projection again, pointed to a location and said, "There is a room with many internal servers, which should be a computer room. We will go here next." There was no time to waste for the team members. After they decided on the next route to take, they quickly dismantled the equipment and left the small warehouse. Set off again along the logistics channel. Continue to rely on the hacking skills of the electronic technical team members to hack the surveillance they passed along the way. Although there was a war outside, the team members felt a little relaxed after actually entering the inside. However, they did not dare to relax at all now. After all, this was inside Yuhui's territory. Even if they were not afraid of death, it would definitely be better to complete the task without dying. But they had just walked a few steps towards the destination. The electronic technical team member suddenly looked a little hesitant, and he opened his mouth, not knowing whether he should speak. After hesitating for a while, he finally said, "Wait a minute." The captain immediately turned around and asked, "What's wrong?" "There's something in the wall next to it." The team members immediately became alert, and the muzzles of their guns were uniformly pointed at the wall. The electronic technical teammate hurriedly explained, "No, no, no. It's not the afterglow. It's some lines and not wires." The captain immediately signaled to the other team members to start working on the wall with cutting tools. Soon, an opening was cut in the wall, revealing the data lines that were precisely arranged inside. However, the exposed lines were in the middle section, and it was very difficult to find the two ends, and it was not certain whether the two ends would be in such a shallow position in the wall like the middle section here. This made the electronic technical team member who found these data lines ask a little nervously, "Mr. Chen, is this okay?" Chen Ming fell into thinking at this time. He thought for a moment and said to the team members, "You first find a place where you can hide temporarily, then cut off the data line directly, and I will do the rest." The team quickly found a room nearby that housed the robot that cleaned the freight channel on a daily basis according to Chen Ming's request. This place can be used for temporary shelter. Then they cut off the data line according to Chen Ming's request and quickly left the scene after leaving the gamma core. Some metallic liquid suddenly appeared out of thin air at the end of the data line connected to the gamma core, transforming the original intact data interface into the same model as the cross-section of the data line that the team had just cut off. And the remaining metallic liquid directly covered it, completely connecting Chen Ming's data line with the data line in the afterglow wall. The next moment, Chen Ming said to the team members who had not yet entered the small room, "No need to hide. Come back." "Ah." The captain was stunned, but still took the team members back to their previous position according to Chen Ming's request. During their return, Chen Ming also controlled all the equipment in the surrounding area by connecting to the Gamma-class afterglow in the middle area of the afterglow. Of course, it was only a segmented module inside the entire giant dock. If there were more, the Gamma-class core would not be able to bear it. But even so, Chen Ming had already obtained quite a lot of permissions. Even because one of the data lines led to the team's next destination, the computer room. Chen Ming did not need to make direct contact, and he had already completely controlled the computer room in his hands. "Take down the core, and then you can go directly there. Don't worry about any problems on the way." The captain's expression was a little stiff. He had been in the army for many years and had never encountered a situation like now where he didn't need to do anything. However, since it was the request of their boss Baiquan and Mr. Chen they provided, he chose to comply. They really arrived at the location of the computer room safely and unimpeded all the way, as if they had cheated. Even in the middle, they did not need the electronic technical team to help hack into the surveillance to cover their whereabouts. And this matter was just a matter of convenience for Chen Ming. Because there is a beta-level afterglow in that computer room, and it was successfully controlled by Chen Ming just now. Through it, Chen Ming has learned some more detailed information. For example, this computer room is actually a data node. This is a kind of thing that must be on giant buildings or giant spacecrafts that exceed a certain size. It is used to integrate and organize data from different sections and then reasonably distribute the data to different locations. And this data node itself also has a certain data storage capacity, so there is a special confidential database here. But confidential things are for people to see. Although Chen Ming couldn't understand what was stored in Yu Hui's unique encrypted database. But this beta level Yu Hui could definitely understand it, so Chen Ming asked it to translate the data in the database for him on the spot. Chen Ming would find a way to record the valuable data and delete the worthless data when the mission was over. Although deleting this data might not have a big impact on Yu Hui, but Chen Ming's idea at the scene was to add trouble if possible, and the rest didn't matter. Then Chen Ming found some strange things in the database. Some partial design blueprints of some New Star unmanned battlecruisers. The blueprint found in the database was confirmed to be true at the first sight of Chen Ming. This discovery immediately excited him. But he immediately realized a problem, which was only a partial blueprint of the Nova Star class. And this is the most troublesome part. There is a big difference between getting a complete blueprint of a battleship and getting a partial blueprint. Because the value of a partial blueprint to Chen Ming may only be to sell it. But if it is a complete blueprint, Chen Ming may even build this Nova Star class himself one day in the future. However, Chen Ming also thought of a possible solution to this problem. It is currently known that there must be many data nodes in Yue Wei's giant dock. Then, according to the situation of the data node he controls now, he speculates that there should also be some Nova Star blueprints hidden in the database of other nodes. As for why there are blueprints, it is likely that there will be different module areas inside the giant dock, responsible for the construction of different parts of the Nova Star class. In order to prevent meaningless data leakage, only the part that the current area is responsible for is stored in each data node. This is a more reasonable speculation that Chen Ming thinks. So if you think so, then Chen Ming feels that there may be a complete blueprint in the central control system at the core of the entire giant dock. However, his current mental power is basically unable to continue to support him to obtain the blueprints of other data nodes, not to mention the blueprint of the central control system. Chen Ming thought about this for a while. He is generally not very greedy. After all, his goal from a long time ago was just to go back alive. Now he has even controlled a large number of Yue Hui individuals and successfully returned to the human world after obtaining the foundation for the development of the colony. There is no need to be greedy. Wait, Chen Ming suddenly reacted. Why is he not greedy? Is it bad for him to be greedy? He has returned to the human empire alive, and the main fleet of Yue Hui that was chasing him was directly killed by the boss. It is impossible for Yue Hui to have another fleet chasing him, which is no different from giving it away for free. So he doesn't need to consider the consequences of doing so now, because there are none. Chen Ming is no longer a matter for Yue Hui. They have no ability and don't know where Chen Ming will go next. Moreover, although Chen Ming has fled, the influence he left behind is still within Yue Hui, and Yue Hui's attention must be more focused on the inside now. At least for a short period of time, Yue Hui cannot threaten his safety. Chen Ming can completely ignore Yue Hui and do whatever he wants to do to make himself develop faster in the future. Besides, there are still people from the 14th Legion present now who can help him complete his ideas. Besides, the goal of the 14th Legion is to destroy the new star level, while Chen Ming's goal is to obtain the blueprint of the new star level, not the new star level itself. There is no conflict, and they will not affect each other. Chen Ming can completely use or cooperate with the 14th Legion to try to obtain more blueprints. As long as he succeeds in obtaining them, his future battleship may be settled. So Chen Ming came to a conclusion after a brief thought. Greed. Must be greedy. It is the method of greed, which needs to be carefully considered. If Chen Ming wants more new star-level blueprints, he must start from the data nodes to control more afterglow and affect more areas of the giant dock. This requires mental power. But he can't bear it now, and he may be in a situation where he closes his eyes and opens them again at any time. Therefore, the problem of mental power must be solved. Chen Ming mobilized his tired brain, thinking about whether there is a way to temporarily gather mental power. He pinched his eyebrows and suddenly thought of something that might work. Ship spirit. Chen Ming had such an idea in his mind, so he knocked on the wall next to him. A phantom instantly poked out of the wall, tilted the part of the head, and exuded a puzzled emotion. Chen Ming felt that the ship spirit could understand what he said, so he asked directly, "Can you restore my mental power?" The ship spirit's puzzled emotions disappeared instantly, flew out of the spaceship, and drilled into Chen Ming's body. It even drilled directly into Chen Ming's brain, covering the outside of his brain like a protective film. Chen Ming instantly felt a sense of coolness. The sleepiness faded a lot, and his mental strength was partially restored. The boat spirit came out of Chen Ming's body. The shadow of the body faded a little and returned to the boat. Chen Ming subconsciously touched his head. He never thought that his random idea would actually be realized by the boat's spirit. Although the specific amount of mental power restored is not much, it is enough to deal with the next things. It made him determined to obtain the new star-level blueprint. And this requires Chen Ming to continue to do things on the giant dock. Just as Chen Ming obtained the mental power bonus from the ship spirit, the members of several special operations teams in the data node room also installed the terrain detection device again, and once again obtained the map of the area to go to next. Looking at the map projected in front of him, the The captain manually marked several places with special shapes on it and said, "These are the locations of gravity magnetic devices." A team member who didn't know much about mechanical equipment subconsciously asked, "So many?" Yes, the gravity magnetic device is not a single device, but multiple devices that can build a giant magnetic field scattered around the inner circle of the dock. Although there are many, we don't need to destroy them all. As long as we can destroy 2 or 3, it will cause a chain reaction, and the others will break down by themselves. Then what should we do specifically? The captain pointed to a place next to him without thinking and said, "Here, the small ships in the dock are anchoring. Here are engineering ships for new stars." He said to see the electronic technology team, "I need you to go in black and use the remaining spacecraft to destroy the gravity magnetic dealer." "Do you use our own weapons?" "The boat can do it. And our weapons have other places to use it. See here." Captain's hand compared with their current position and the next target position, that is, the cargo distribution center, and the end of the remaining shipyard to the new star, class engineering ship. "We are still safe until the cargo distribution center. The passage has been in the warehouse where the shipbuilding equipment is installed in the innermost of the dock. Yuhui is now in a state of tight outside, loose in the middle, and tight inside. So it is impossible for us to continue moving forward without a direct conflict with Yuhui. Prepare for a frontal attack and check all the weapons. When we came out, we brought good things for testing. If the efficiency is high enough, we can complete the task before Yuhui kills us all. Run if you can. If you can't run, just drop your weapons and surrender. It's not shameful. But remember, it's after the task is completed. If you drop your weapons before the task is completed, you don't have to go back. Are you clear?" Several team members nodded immediately. And Magnet, Chen Ming, who had just obtained some extra mental power from the ship's spirit, just turned his attention back here. He also happened to hear the content of the captain and the team members' discussion on the specific actions to be taken later. Chen Ming could hear that the captain had been formulating their specific plans without Chen Ming's help. Each step was basically thought out on the spot. Of course, Chen Ming did not blame them for not preparing for this before doing such an important thing. After all, there was no advance arrangement for sending out the special operations team. It was because of Chen Ming's casual remark that Bai Quan suddenly decided to form such a team. There was no possibility of advance preparation. So from the point of view that the captain was able to make quite reasonable arrangements temporarily, the captain's ability was still there. It's just that his thinking was still limited to ordinary people, and he didn't take Chen Ming into consideration at all. Of course, it is also possible that he didn't dare to take Chen Ming into consideration. That further shows that he is a person who knows the limits and will not take Chen Ming's help for granted. But since Chen Ming heard it, he must not let him go ahead with this plan. After all, the upper limit of his ability in Yu Hui's territory is too high. And how much he contributes to this matter now is likely to affect how much he can get from Bai Quan later. So he interrupted the conversation between the captain and the team members and said, "No need to go through so much trouble, just go over there. You will be safe until you enter the warehouse of the shipyard over there. Because if you go further, you will be close to the location where the main battleship is built in the core of the giant dock." Although the beta-level afterglow that Chen Ming controlled in the data node had more horizontal control, several areas involved in the data node had been affected by it. But in terms of vertical penetration, this beta-level Yuhui is not very good, resulting in the area that Chen Ming can influence only here. It also resulted in him being unable to support the last section of the special operations team. Of course, this is also because Yuhui's giant dock is basically modular, and there is almost no physical connection between them. If it weren't for the fact that Chen Ming controlled a relatively key data node, the spread of the impact might be smaller, or even impossible to spread out. Otherwise, as long as he controls a data node, the rest of the giant dock may be controlled by him along the network cable without worrying about the impact. After all, Yuhui's giant dock is controlled by a large number of Yuhui individuals. All mental problems can be borne by the Yuhui individuals under his control. If this is really possible, Chen Ming can even send people in all the way to the location of the new star-level dock under construction. Only here is the place that is completely disconnected from all other areas of the dock. Unless there is a Yuhui individual controlled by Chen Ming who can physically reach here and access the data network here. Otherwise, this is a pure land that Chen Ming cannot control. In other words, it is an area that Chen Ming cannot really touch. But if you think about it carefully, it is actually okay. After all, we have come here, and Chen Ming's subsequent help is not meaningful. He can't directly control the Alpha-class Yuhui responsible for this giant dock now. The current situation is that he can't provide additional help to the Special Operations Team earlier. However, in order to prevent the Special Operations Team from having any unrealistic ideas, Chen Ming immediately followed up with another sentence after saying the previous one. You must go on the road ahead by yourself, or find a way to find a data cable. If you can't find it, you can only pray for good luck. The captain still looked respectful to Chen Ming. And this time he immediately abandoned the plan and idea he had just proposed without any hesitation and said, Mr. Chen, we follow your decision. And you have done enough. We really didn't think that we could break through the outer 2 layers of the giant dock so easily. The captain's face under the protective suit showed a trace of respect from the heart, instead of the hypocritical respect that was only maintained on the surface at the beginning. Seeing the captain's changes in such an expression, Chen Ming suddenly remembered what Bai Quan said before. When he, the commander, can bring victory to his soldiers will naturally support him and eliminate some unnecessary troubles for him. And now Chen Ming has brought hope of victory to the Special Operations Team, and they seem to have similar ideas. Although Chen Ming doesn't really need it. But the feeling of being respected is still quite good. And it also makes him feel like he is prying someone else's corner. Of course, Chen Ming is just doing things according to his ideas, and there is no subjective behavior of prying corners. So he won't be able to avoid it. After all, if the Special Operations Team can really come back alive after completing the mission, then it is almost foreseeable that they will be successful in the future. It is also good to maintain a good relationship with them. Even if it can't be maintained, it doesn't matter. Chen Ming doesn't care much about the relationship with people in the future. The focus of his future development is outside the empire. Just do things normally and let the rest take its course. The team quickly cleaned up the equipment installed in the data node and set off again. Although there are many robots and turrets on the road, guarding against possible invaders, and also acting as backup combat units for fighting with the 14th Corps Fleet on the front line. But the Special Operations Team members walked in it quite casually at this time, as if they were in an empty space. The slight tension on the faces of the group gradually dissipated as they continued to go deeper. They also thoroughly understood what kind of capabilities Mr. Chen, sent by their immediate superior, Major General Bai Quan Bai, had. The electronic technicians suddenly looked thoughtful. He recalled the last mission they performed on Yu Hui's territory. Although the army was relatively closed to outside news. And when actually performing the mission, everyone only needed to take care of what they were supposed to do. So the general soldiers didn't really know that the last failed mission was actually to rescue Chen Ming. But the electronic technician's usual work tasks involved network-related parts, so he was often more informed than others. So he silently connected the Chen Ming rumored in the outside world with Mr. Chen, who was now guiding them. His eyes seemed full of eagerness. Because Chen Ming was a psychic. Although the news of psychics is just an urban legend in the eyes of ordinary civilians. But in the marginal star field that can be equated with lawless places, and within the 14th Legion, it is basically a semi-public matter. And for the people in the Legion, psychics have a more important meaning. Although in most cases, the value of psychics on large-scale battlefields is not that high. Of course, the boss is an exception. But when performing some special tasks, such as the tasks performed by the Special Operations Team now, the value of psychics is completely different. They can have advantages that no one and no modern technology can achieve on small-scale battlefields. It can bring the possibility of perfect execution of tasks to other people who act together. In the eyes of the electronic technical team, Chen Ming is such an existence. And although Chen Ming is not a member of the 14th Legion, or even a soldier, since their boss Bai Quan can invite Chen Ming to guide them to complete the task, then their relationship must be relatively close. In the future, there may be opportunities to perform tasks like now. When that time comes, he must find a way to participate. because it means the merit of promotion within reach, even if it comes with a heavy debt of gratitude. The electronic technicians silently decided in their hearts to share this news with their companions later. And before they knew it, several members of the special operations team had already arrived at the location closest to the shipyard. Chen Ming asked the team to stop and said, "After the corner ahead, you will enter the area that I cannot influence for the time being." The electronic technician took out the equipment he had used before, gestured a few times nearby and said, "I didn't find the data cable." Although he said so. But Chen Ming actually found the data cable nearby because he had obtained the specific map of the giant dock through the beta-level afterglow before. So of course he knew the direction of the different lines inside the product and knew the location of the most critical data line. But the nearest data line that can affect the shipyard area is inside the shipyard because of the division of different modules in the design of the giant dock. So Chen Ming had to at least wait for the members of the special operations team to enter safely, and he had to cut through the wall that was more than 10 centimeters thick before he could connect the data cable. The noise of cutting through the wall would inevitably attract Yu Hui's defense units. So Chen Ming didn't expect anything for this and just said, "The rest is up to you." "Yes." The captain responded and waved to the electronic technical teammate to signal him to start working. Since Chen Ming had just controlled a new beta-level core, he gave the electronic technical teammate a string of more advanced and internal data codes. So now, it was easier for him to hack in. After hacking the surveillance and defense devices at the door, the team successfully slipped into the shipyard warehouse. Confirming that the special operations team had their own plans and ideas, they didn't need him to watch everything. In addition, he basically had no chance to intervene next. So Chen Ming planned to start doing his own thing. At this time, his attention had shifted from helping Bai Quan complete the task to helping himself obtain the future upper limit, that is, the battleship. In fact, Chen Ming has been preparing since just now. In order to achieve his goal, he has investigated the defense measures inside the giant dock. For example, the peak time that Yu Hui's combat robots can continue to fight is 3 hours. After entering the combat state for 3 hours, the robots on the front line must take turns. Use the robots on standby in the rear to replace the Yu Hui robots that have fought with the human robots on the assault boats launched by the 14th Legion to ensure combat effectiveness. If there is combat damage, the robots on standby in the rear will be replaced to the front line earlier. And those replaced robots will be sent to mechanical assembly plants in different locations in the giant dock. Multiple factories will carry out maintenance work together to share the pressure of the factory. Therefore, Chen Ming can do something with these robots used to defend against robots on human assault boats. As long as he can find a way to control a robot and install a Yu Hui core in it, and then be replaced by a mechanical processing plant somewhere in the next rotation, then the rest of the things will be logical. Chen Ming has now controlled many low-level Yu Hui and many robots. And there is one more thing. Although Chen Ming's ability to control Yu Hui on a large scale and thoroughly has been exposed, but it takes time for Yu Hui to notify them. It also takes time for the notification to reach the giant dock. Although the giant dock has indeed received Chen Ming's message, but Yu Hui, who was in the battle, had not had time to take care of this problem until now. It was impossible to suddenly check a robot during the battle to prevent Chen Ming from controlling the robot or something. They could only bite the bullet and fight the 14th Legion now. At least there was good news for them. That is, they were relatively strict in the management of the giant dock from the beginning. Chen Ming's ability to control Yu Hui has not yet been demonstrated here. Therefore, at least before the end of this battle, Chen Ming can safely use the rules of combat robot rotation set by Yu Hui himself to achieve his goal. The success rate of this matter is very high. As long as he can access different data nodes, he can find a way to put together a complete set of new star-level blueprints. Or, Chen Ming has another choice. Go straight to Huanglong and infiltrate the central control system of the giant dock directly. As long as he can control this place, the blueprint is just a matter of getting it. This new star under construction may be controlled by him. Chen Ming can be sure that there must be an alpha in Yu Hui's giant dock, or even 2. Otherwise, Bai Quan would not have been able to see Yu Hui launching a new star level that was not yet fully completed. An alpha Yu Hui can't control a battleship and a giant dock at the same time. Therefore, Chen Ming may even be able to obtain 2 new Alpha-class Yuhui. It's just that the difficulty of completing this is a bit high. And Chen Ming can't think of any way to break through Yuhui's defense and physical isolation for the time being. So Chen Ming didn't think much about the second option. Now let's focus on controlling more data nodes. Chen Ming directly contacted by Quan and said, "Do you still have robots and enhanced assault boats?" "There are enough assault boats, but the reserve robots can probably be deployed in 2 waves." "Then let's release them." The Special Operations team has now entered the core area. "It's best if you can attract more attention on the periphery." "Understood." Bai Quan agreed decisively after hearing Chen Ming's words. Of course, he didn't know Chen Ming's actual purpose yet. Chen Ming had no intention of telling anyone. Anyway, what he and Bai Quan said was true, and they were not lying to him. And his goal was the blueprint of the new star after all, so it was better to keep such things secret. For Chen Ming alone, the battleship could completely serve as a trump card. As a trump card, it must not be told to anyone. Not long after, some robots controlled by Chen Ming and equipped with the Yuhui core received the order to rotate. They needed to go to a defensive artillery platform in the front area of the battle with the 14th Legion fleet to take over the positions of the robots that needed repair. This section of the road was not far, and with the assistance of a special rail logistics vehicle, the robot arrived here quickly. Through the robot's sensor, Chen Ming could see that there were many holes and loopholes on the outer wall of the artillery platform, which were being repaired by several engineering robots. At the same time, Chen Ming could see through these broken shields that Yuhui and the 14th Legion were still exchanging fire in the outer space environment. At this time, an offensive-class ship was advancing at the forefront of the 14th Legion's front line. Even the shield was not turned on, and it relied on the armor to bear the firepower. The armor of the offensive-class ship was already overflowing with a blazing white luster, as if even the armor had been melted. Those were the traces left by the irradiated microsievert-class light radiation cannon. But for this offensive, it was only the armor that was destroyed, and the hull inside the armor and the personnel inside were not in any danger. Unlike other main battleships, the offensive class does not need to lead a fleet to prevent the concentrated fire of the enemy fleet. It can completely rush out of the front line alone and share the damage that the entire front line needs to bear alone. It can do what only a fleet can do. This is the offensive. Even when this offensive was bombarded by the weapons carried by the Yuhui fleet and the Yuhui giant dock, its main weapon, the thermal pulse laser, was still outputting crazily. In the case of no need to rely on the shield to withstand the radiation energy increase caused by damage, the narrow and long red shuttle-shaped energy restraint bomb that could directly kill a cruiser with one shot bombarded the Yuhui fleet as if it was free. Even if there were 2 radiation-class main shields and a main shield temporarily used on the giant dock to build a joint shield group, it gave all the Yuhui ships on the battlefield a considerable blessing. But the current situation on the battlefield is also due to this offensive, which has caused Yuhui to be suppressed and unable to engage in normal fire with the fleet of the 14th Legion. Even if the linked shield can allow the battleship shield to help the lower-level ships resist the damage caused by the battleship weapons, but the energy released by the explosion of the energy restraint bomb did not reach the lower limit of the linked shield protection. These energies hit the surrounding spacecraft, which is real. If you are not careful, you may set off a series of fireworks in the fleet. So Yuhui can't bear this kind of offensive-level firepower that completely abandons the shield and uses armor to resist the front line. The only way to deal with such an offensive seems to be to find a way to deal with the 2 thermal pulse lasers. But these 2 things are somewhat different from the main weapons of most other battleships. It is not installed on the load-bearing point for easy maintenance and replacement. Instead, it is directly installed in the ship during the design, protected under the heavy offensive-level armor. If you want to destroy them in battle, you can only use high-intensity weapons to shoot into them from the position of their gun barrels. Although this offensive ship protruding at the forefront of the battle line did not open its main shield on a large scale. But in front of the 2 thermal pulse laser gun barrels, a small independent shield connected to the main shield generator was installed and turned on. Yuhui could not continuously output high intensity to these 2 small shields, and had no way to deal with the thermal pulse laser. If you really want to take care of this offensive ship, looking at its current armor, you can see that Yu Hui has no chance of destroying it when another offensive ship is still covering it from behind. The offensive is too hard. While attracting most of the firepower, it can also give other fleets of the 14th Legion a good output environment and a chance to breathe after the previous long-term exchange of fire. But if you ignore it, in addition to its armor, the offensive class itself is not vegetarian with its thermal pulse laser. If it has no pressure on defense, it can give the most terrifying pressure to Yu Hui's entire front line, which is more terrifying than the general main fleet. So Yu Hui can only take care of it, destroy the offensive armor as soon as possible, reach the upper limit it can bear, and retreat back to the front line. And this also led to Yu Hui now only focusing firepower on the offensive. It seems that there is no way to quickly get rid of this situation, and it looks extremely disadvantaged. Such a scene. But Chen Ming, who just saw this scene, felt some problems. Although Bai Quan is now suppressing Yu Hui, Chen Ming feels that Bai Quan seems to be making a last desperate move. This is his subconscious reaction. After careful thinking, he feels that his guess seems to be fine. It happened that his contact with Bai Quan was not broken, so Chen Ming directly said to Bai Quan, "You don't look good over there?" Bai Quan did not show any extra reaction to Chen Ming's question and asked calmly, "Why do you say that?" "Because I think you have already felt that you don't have time to stay any longer, otherwise there is no need for that ship to attack directly alone." Bai Quan's face was still expressionless and calm, but he smiled bitterly in his heart. At the same time, he was a little surprised that Chen Ming could find out the purpose of his actions so quickly. However, Chen Ming has given him many surprises, and it is normal for a psychic to surprise him no matter how many times. Bai Quan had always thought highly of Chen Ming, so now that his thoughts were guessed, he was only slightly surprised and admitted, "That's true. I have delayed here for too long. If the new star is successfully launched, and after Yu Hui confirms that I have no other backup, the reinforcements can be dispatched to arrive. I only have 2 ordinary offensive ships, and I don't have the capital to continue to stand on the field, so I have to retreat. But fortunately, at least I took down a radiation ship at the beginning. It's a profit, but it's a little less." Chen Ming was a little confused and asked, "You don't count on the special operations team you arranged?" "The special operations team is just my temporary idea. It can only be regarded as a bonus, it can't be based on luck. Under normal circumstances, I actively avoid the element of luck. Unless there is really no other way, I still want to create the final result myself." "Then you said it so seriously before." Bai Quan explained, "You have to have an attitude when doing things. If I asked you for help with a casual attitude before, would you be too lazy to help me? And I just don't like the element of luck. But if a little luck and a little loss can be exchanged for unimaginable benefits, then I am still very happy to do it. It's just that I won't put all my hopes on it, so I said it's a bonus." Chen Ming shook his head slightly and said, 2 billion bonus. Rich people are different." Bai Quan said subconsciously, "You a psychic? Oh, you just... It's okay. You will definitely not value money in the future." Chen Ming immediately noticed the problem in Bai Quan's words and said, "So what you mean is that you are taking advantage of the fact that I still value money now to ask me for help with these things that I will not care about in the future? But you still need money now. And I said I don't value it, not that I don't need it." "That's right." Bai Quan took the initiative to skip this topic and continued, "You can see that my idea is to let the offensive level go forward alone to look for opportunities. If I find them, I may be able to directly break through Yu Hui's defense. If you can't find them, then it's time to prepare for retreat. Look at Yu Hui's battle line. Although it looks like it's possible at any time, it's actually I have a ship that is attacking and attracting all of Yu Hui's firepower, and the rest of the fleet is outputting at full strength. Even if it can't be broken, there should be no follow-up. I have to prepare to shrink the front line and retreat. Otherwise, it will be difficult to leave when Yu Hui's support comes." Bai Quan was silent for a while, and then said to Chen Ming, "The next batch of assault boats is ready. After this batch, there is a last batch of smaller ones. Do you want to release them together? Separate them, put more here." Chen Ming displayed the 3-dimensional image of the giant dock on the terminal next to Bai Quan and marked the area with the most robots he controlled, that is, the area of the defense artillery platform. Bai Quan immediately noticed that the three-dimensional image on the panel had quite a lot of details, and it was obvious that the specific data was obtained through field investigation. He copied the image file and sent it to another place. The data was still quite valuable. Chen Ming obviously noticed Bai Quan's action, but he acquiesced. Because he was not the only one who got this specific three-dimensional imaging data, the Special Operations Team also had it. If the Special Operations Team could return alive, this data would be of no value, so it would be better to give it directly to Bai Quan now. Taking this data is equivalent to owing a part of his favor. Bai Quan obviously knew this, but it was not a bad thing to owe a favor to a psychic. After saving the data, he immediately agreed to Chen Ming's request and issued an order to the department responsible for the deployment of assault boats. A new round of enhanced assault boats was released. At the same time, he was also thinking about why Chen Ming had to specify the location for the deployment. He couldn't think of a result for the time being, so he simply asked Chen Ming directly, "Why do you need me to concentrate on deploying assault boats? Only by dispersing them can the defense force inside Yue be more dispersed and their attention be more dispersed. Because I am useful." Chen Ming's answer can be said to be a fusion of the four words, "I don't want to say" in it. Bai Quan did not continue to ask, and continued to command the fleet, gradually shrinking the formation. Chen Ming did not have time to chat, and focused his attention on the Yue robots that were about to face the robots of the 14th Legion. It would be foolish not to interfere. But he had to try it himself to determine how to interfere. At this time, the second batch, or more accurately, the third batch of assault boats launched from the defensive artillery platform could be seen coming around from outside the battle line. After a considerable part of them were intercepted, there were still about 100 assault boats that hit the damaged outer wall of the giant dock and pierced into the dock. The number was more than before. It seemed that the 14th Legion had given enough frontal pressure, making Yue's defense force a little insufficient. As soon as these assault boats landed, the hatches suddenly bounced open, and a large number of combat robots of the 14th Legion jumped out. Some assault boats did not even open their hatches, and the robots directly broke through the armor of the assault boats from the inside. Among these programming, only the number of robots that were destroyed even exceeded the number of defense units stationed by Yue in a short period of time. This is exactly what Chen Ming wanted to see. In the battle that suddenly broke out on the defensive artillery platform. Although Chen Ming did not control the robots all the time, he would take the initiative to let the robots reveal flaws in the battle at some critical moments. Let the robots of the 14th Legion cause some damage to the robots of Yue that he controlled, which would affect the battle, but would not be completely destroyed. While having a full excuse to withdraw from the battlefield, it can also avoid exposing the Yue core he installed in it. However, Chen Ming also specially modified these robots, and the locations where the cores were installed were the innermost and hardest parts of the entire robot, so this situation would basically not occur. Chen Ming was just taking precautions. After the robots on the third wave of assault boats destroyed a considerable number of equipment on the defensive artillery platform, all the robots of the 14th Legion were completely cleaned up, but the damage they caused to the Yue robots was obviously much more than the last time the 14th Legion deployed assault boats. Of course, this is because the robots controlled by Chen Ming are giving away for free. However, under the premise that the number of robots of the 14th Legion that broke in at the beginning was obviously more than the defense units, this situation is also very normal and is not worth worrying about for Yue. The damaged robots were quickly gathered and prepared to be sent for repair through the orbital logistics system. And because the direction in which the defensive artillery platform was facing was fighting with the 14th Legion, a large number of damaged spacecraft were basically being repaired in the nearby mechanical processing plants and repair plants at this time. In addition, some factories and other places also have different numbers of ships under repair. Therefore, this batch of Yue's damaged robots were divided into 3 parts, placed on different orbital logistics vehicles, and transported to different locations. When the visual sensors of the robots controlled by Chen Ming saw the factory gate appear at the end of the logistics channel, when he knew that his chance had come, he had to act immediately. Because after entering the factory, Yu Hui's first step must be to scan this batch of robots and confirm the damage for subsequent repairs. In this process, the afterglow core installed by Chen Ming inside the robot will inevitably be exposed. So, before such a thing happened, before the rail transport vehicle entered the factory, Chen Ming took the initiative to destroy the weapon of a robot he controlled. A large number of electric sparks instantly erupted on the rail transport vehicle, and then, as if triggering a chain reaction, electric sparks also erupted on a robot next to it. And its weapon system suddenly started firing randomly as if it was out of control. Instantly, another robot had an unexpected situation. A series of chain reactions continued to occur on the vehicle like a series of firecrackers. Directly caused another rail logistics transport vehicle following behind to brake urgently and stop. But an even more unexpected situation happened again. The malfunction of the weapon of the afterglow robot in front caused several stray bullets to affect the transport vehicle behind. And this happened to trigger another accident. The battery fluid of a robot leaked, directly causing half of the logistics transport vehicle to burn. A logistics vehicle can accommodate 10 robots. At least a dozen robots in the two cars had problems. But in fact, there were only 5 robots controlled by Chen Ming, and the rest were really accidental chain reactions. In addition, these robots were damaged, so it was normal for accidents to occur. So Yu Hui still had no doubts so far. Only the factory quickly dispatched a team of robots to deal with the messy scene. Taking advantage of the extremely chaotic moment, a robot suddenly exploded again, knocking another robot away and pushing it to the wall. And the next moment, it destroyed the energy supply core of the robot next to the wall intentionally or unintentionally. A violent explosion occurred in the logistics channel. The broken wall, accompanied by a huge amount of electric sparks, instantly blew a large gap in the wall. The damaged circuit inside the wall was exposed, and the damage to the circuit caused the lights inside the freight channel to flicker a few times. However, the timely activation of the backup power supply did not cause any problems in the freight channel. At this time, Yu Hui, who was controlling the robot team that came to deal with the robots, quickly released a forced shutdown signal with the advanced control authority it had. But the signal receiving component of the robot that caused the situation just now did not receive this signal at all. It even returned a series of faulty cyclic lock codes. Such performance is clearly a feature of damaged combat system chips. Yu Hui did not doubt it and immediately made the best solution to this situation. He directly asked the robot that came over to set up its weapon and destroyed the head of the robot with the combat system chip installed. As a large number of broken wires were exposed in the air, the robot fell beside the gap. All this was deliberately arranged by Chen Ming. In the blind spot that all visual sensors and monitoring systems on the scene could not capture, a small amount of metal liquid that was barely visible to the naked eye was appearing at the end of the data line of the robot's broken gap. Connect the data line inside the wall to itself. Now, Chen Ming finally found an opportunity and successfully touched the data line. Chen Ming's spiritual energy infiltrated from the data line to the factory that was about to arrive next to it like a madly spreading virus. The factory fell instantly. All the mechanical equipment that handled the accident outside the factory suddenly stopped for a moment. Then, as if nothing had happened, they continued the previous task. Chen Ming continued to trace back to the location of the regional data node along the common data line in this area. He controlled the beta class afterglow here without any setbacks and mastered the database here. Soon, the second blueprint of the Nova class fell into his hands. This is a blueprint of the Nova class engine. In addition to the whole structure blueprint of the Nova class ship with an X shape in the lower left corner that Chen Ming obtained at the beginning. The remaining blueprints probably need to be collected in a dozen copies. It looks like a lot. But just now, the other 2 factories that were assigned robot maintenance tasks also encountered similar accidents. Although there are not as many accidents and coincidences as here, the final result remains unchanged. Chen Ming also controlled the nodes there by contacting the data line. In the databases of the other 2 nodes, Chen Ming also found 2 new blueprints. They are the armor blueprint of the left front part and the structural blueprint of the central part. Chen Ming feels that if he works harder, his goal of collecting blueprints will soon be achieved. Moreover, With the beta-level cores of these three newly controlled areas as a foundation, it should be relatively easier for him to control other areas and find new blueprint components. However, at this moment, Chen Ming's consciousness suddenly became dazed, and a huge amount of fatigue surged into his brain. For a moment, he seemed to have returned to Reimu, back to the moment when he had to exhaust his mental power to survive. He could clearly feel that his mental power had reached the bottom again. Chen Ming was stunned. He obviously did not use that much mental power, and he had been saving it deliberately. When controlling new areas, he would control the Yuhui individuals little by little to help share his mental pressure as long as possible. It was impossible to use it so quickly. Chen Ming quickly concentrated his consciousness and carefully felt the consumption of his mental power. Then he found that what the ship's spirit had just distributed to him was not directly added to his mental power. It was some temporary mental power hanging in other places. Even if it was not used, it would soon dissipate. The shadow of the ship's spirit faded a lot, and it was impossible for it to provide him with mental power for the second time in a short time. He had to find a way to solve this problem. So far, Chen Ming has obtained several partial blueprints of the new star level. He couldn't give up halfway. Even if he had to hold on and risk fainting, he had to do this. Anyway, he had fainted before. When he was on Ruemu Star, he would take the initiative to use up his mental power in order to fall asleep quickly. The coma caused by the consumption of mental power was nothing at all. Chen Ming was also a little ruthless at this time. If he hadn't seen those new star-level blueprints, he could have withdrawn at any time. But not now. His reason, instinct, and desire all told him that he must obtain this complete blueprint. However, at this time, even the pain of biting his tongue tip could not make him continue to cheer up. So Chen Ming stood up directly from the desk and went to the small kitchen next door. In the kitchen, he found a pointed kitchen knife and pointed it at the fingertips. Even if he got injured here, it would be the easiest place to heal quickly and the least likely to get into trouble. The tip of the knife was against the fingertips. The slight sting was not enough to make him conscious. So he stabbed the tip of the knife slightly into the tip of his index finger. A drop of blood fell on the table. Feeling the mental stimulation of pain, Chen Ming subconsciously took a deep breath. He could continue to hold on, and he would definitely be able to collect all the remaining blueprints.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.